It's a good morning to talk about crime. And you'd well recall during the budget debate, we came up with an argument, Tona, to say that one of the things that the government can do in the budget debate, based on how certain critical areas, the results in certain critical areas, that they could effectively lock out the opposition out of the debate on certain critical points because things are going well in those areas. It makes criticism of the results ridiculous because people will say, well, but just look at the performance. Crime being the headline one. But we did say that whereas certain areas, the performance, the results would be so good that the opposition could be locked out, they would still find a way to criticize certain things because, again, no point is unassailable. Every argument can be debated. Every argument can be contradicted. There's no supreme argument or supreme fact. People look at facts in the face and argue something else. So here we have what has been building since the opposition spokesman on national security, they say citizen security, but it's national security, came here on this very program and in response to a direct question said, the National Security Minister deserves no credit for the decline in major crimes, including murder. That, it has been proven, was not an isolated comment. It is a line that the opposition sunk their teeth into and which they have built out over the months since that interview. And now it's a solid plank of their campaign. The government deserves no credit, not even some, zero, because I think that was a phrase, that was a question put to him on the morning. Are you saying they deserve zero credit? Or he said zero credit, but zero got into it somewhere or the other. Yeah, deserve no credit for the reduction in major crimes, especially murder. Apart from that being fantastic, and for some strange reason, we don't use the word fantastic in the true sense.
Correct.
True meaning of the word. We don't. Yeah. But that statement is fantastic. Yeah. This is the same national security minister that has been at press conferences alongside his party leader, flaying the government for crime being out of control. So a part of the lockout principle that we articulated several months ago was that where it is you can't find a direct route to criticism, it may force you to make things up as you go along, to make up your own facts and to build an attack line that really is not credible, but you tell yourself it is because you huddle and you say, well, we can't give them credit in this area because that will weaken our position or push for political office. And that's what this is. And again, we're in a competitive environment. We have two big political parties and they are fighting for political office. So as we have seen so far in this campaign, nothing is off the table. Yeah, when it comes to building a narrative, everything is being pulled for and everything is being used in this battle for Jamaica House. So where does that leave us as the people? How should we interpret this reduction in murder, especially major crimes, welcome as well? But let's talk about murder, homicides. In which point in this country's history has a government not been responsible and has not taken responsibility when crime has spiraled out of control? And crime has been an out of control spiral for much of my life, the bulk of my life. Yeah, I came after 1980 when that bloody election pushed us up to what, 800 and other homicides per year. And we fell a little bit back to the 600s in the early 1990s, but we hit 1,000 under PJ Patterson's administration. I think 1 or 2 years below that, but we've just been over 1,000 consistently since. Yeah. When has a government not held up its hand and said, yes, the responsibility for crime being out of control is ours. When has an opposition party who has criticized the government for not doing enough to bring crime under control, when has that criticism been lacked credibility? When have we said, why are you blaming the government for crime being out of control? That's a wrong thing. Those things have never happened. It is always that the government in office takes responsibility when things are bad. So why now should the administration in office resile and not mention the fact of the crime reductions on its watch? I saw a gentleman on social media who we've had a run-in with here. He seems to think he's a household name, and as I said, he's a household name in his own house. Yes, that gentleman has said it's shameless that you have a government campaigning on crime being reduced. And I say, but these people are shameless indeed. You realize the reason this morning, listeners, viewers, I'm not even going into the numbers. I have them all here. But I'm just reasoning with you heart to heart. When in this country's history have we ever had any government in power, whether it's a PNP administration and a JLP, criticizing them for how crime is spiraling out of control, and people could credibly say, well, why are you beating the government for that? So why now, when we are in this position, which both administrations in their own way have contributed to, the PNP in a small part, the JLP largely because they've been in charge for 9 years, and the results we've seen now are a result of the massive investment that Holness talks about all the time, that Chang talks about all the time, that the police themselves talk about all the time. When was the last time you heard a police commissioner talking to the media lament legislative tools that are there to allow them to catch and hold the criminals, speak about the resources, lack of mobility? These were huge issues not so long ago. In fact, Bunting himself in sectoral debate presentations past, 2014 to be precise, speaks about the need for more mobility, greater mobility to help the men and women of the force. There have been so many examples. As I said, I've done the paper trail. I have them here, the speeches, the press conferences, what has been said, the 4-5 crime plan under a PNP administration because crime numbers were out of control. So now we come to this point where we are heading in the right direction. We are not in a good place. We are at a better place relative to where we have been before. Mm-hmm. And I see people saying, oh, but you can't talk about crime going down under this administration because the numbers are only where they were when the PNP last left office. What kind of reasoning is that? What kind of reasoning is that? When it was that when the PNP was last in office, they evaluated the performance in crime quarter by quarter, year over year. They didn't use the metric that they used then is the same one other people are using to grade this Holness administration's performance on crime. They want to change the metric, the metrics rather. Yeah, they want to change it because it fits better into the narrative. So I'm saying, I worry about the Jamaican voter, or I worry about the Jamaican who hears a certain kind of message and ignores the fact because the message is so, the message is, they've been buffeted. You know what buffet means? Buffet means to hit repeatedly. You're buffeted by this thing that government deserves zero credit, no credit for crime going down, especially murders. It must cause a reasonable man to wonder, say, well, hold on. Well, if the man say it so often, in light of these numbers, then I wonder if it's true. I'm suggesting that there are several things that can be said about the fight against crime and murders especially, that are credible. And that could compel someone, reasonably thinking, of course, who's not tied to any party, to say, well, you know, I like this message and I'd support this party for this measure that they'll implement to take us to a better place beyond where we are now because we're looking for improvement. We're looking for zero. Although zero murders is not possible, but you get the idea. But to come and say incredibly and fantastically that the same way you wanted to apportion resources to the JCF, the same way that you were keen to make legislative changes to help the JCF, the same way you were rallying the citizenry to assist the JCF to get better results, those things are happening now. And you say it's not government action, it's purely the police. Then let me ask a question. For the billions that have been spent on police work over the last 9 years, how many of those billions have been signed off by the police commissioners? Simpson says the police alone. And this is the trick in the argument. It's a bait to get people like myself, people in the administration, to defend the government's position in such a way that you could say, let's put up the police against the commentators in media, put up the police against the government, because here's that, the government is trying to take all the credit, and here, that public commentator trying to give the police the government all the credit. No, that's not it, of course. It cannot happen without the men and women of the constabulary. They are the ones out there. As Buju Banton said, I'm me a guard in no life, I want to know. When they know asleep, me a patrol out a door. They are the ones, I am in no doubt about that. As I keep repeating, I have family who's out there on the grind daily, nightly. So I know it's them. But what about the enabling structure that is built around them? And what credit does a government take for apportioning resources wisely? All the things that have been done to help the police to do this incredible job that we're talking about are things previous administrations wish they could do if they had the resources. This one does, and it is doing those things. So how do you cheapen their argument and believe that you are convincing sensible people that government deserves zero credit for what we are doing? I'm suggesting that this is one of the gravest mistakes that the PNP campaign is making. It is so grave because guess what? Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Even though we know men and women lie with numbers.